One, two, three.
Well, hello.
Hello. Welcome to the Coop and Hatch podcast. It's been a little longer than expected, but that's okay because there's been a lot of progress recently. So we'll get you kind of filled in of our adventures we've been on recently because you went to Georgia.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, it was for work, but there's always, how was the car scene back there?
There's more donks back there than out here.
We do love the donks. The donks are great. Did you see Nate bought a donk and then like 3 days later it blew up?
No.
I don't know if that's the accurate time frame or if it actually blew up. I just know it died. I don't know how.
That's not good.
Yeah, so then I was in Florida for a week, went and checked out the National Museum of Drag Racing, but there's like, I forgot the guy's name.
Don Garland.
Yeah, Don. Dude, that guy is insane.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll post some pictures, but like we have pictures of like car parts split in half just because there was just too much power and it just blew up. One of those being a supercharger system that's kind of like this, but it uses like a twin scroll. We'll show you the picture. It literally split in half. Like
that's crazy.
That's unreal.
You can't imagine that much force,
right?
To blow up.
It's basically imagine grabbing your motor and ripping it in half. That's what happened.
And that metal's about that thick on those things.
Yeah, in the internals, it's bigger than this.
That's nuts.
Yeah, and then we did Colorado. Colorado was we went to like some 4x places, but that's nothing too special.
Well, that was a smaller town.
Yeah. Something I did notice that was really interesting between the East Coast and the West Coast, though, is trucks are built so differently compared because you kind of see the ones that are like lifted on the big wheels, and that's really common around. In Florida and the East Coast, they also do what's called the Carolina Squat, which is like they drop the rear end and the hood comes up. Not safe. Don't do that. But they also do mudding over there rather than rock crawling. And so with rock crawling, the idea is you want kind of fatter tires because you let the air down and gives you more traction up and kind of move the tire like around the rocks and stuff. They're trying to cut through the mud or stay on top of the mud, so they use tractor tires on everything. There's UTVs that this guy was building it's a UTV that's going to have 600 horsepower, which is just insane.
That's nuts.
And it's on 64-inch rims that taller? I don't know. I think I'm 64 inches, maybe. Probably not even that.
Where's the yardstick?
Yeah, it was interesting just to see like trucks that were purpose-built, how much different they are from purpose-built trucks here. So it's kind of cool to see it in a week, just how much difference is across the states.
Well, it's also a great lead-in for this week's subject.
Yes, sir.
Each region of the country has different types of races or competitions.
Yes. Yeah.
So back there, the mud's super popular. We're out here.
Trying to find mud. We don't even have water.
Is those swamp buggies?
Yeah, that's what they were building these things for, because on those tracks they intentionally go through like woods and stuff like that, but then they'll also go through like mud, but then they also go through like the swamp areas, and that's why they need those like massive wheels.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have swamps, so
no.
We have a lot of rock crawling, a lot of mountains.
Oh yeah, so it was kind of cool. It was good. It was really, I've never seen it like back to back so different in a week too. So it was kind of more like somehow got culture shock inside a place I live. That's weird.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of one trip I made back to Georgia. I had the weekend, so I wanted to do some sightseeing. So I drove out to Savannah, and as I'm driving down the freeway, I kept passing guys pulling basically garage race cars.
Okay.
Not big sponsor guys. Something you build in your garage.
Kind of more like a stock car that's souped up.
Yeah, well, most of them were probably all street legal as well, but after the third or fourth one that I passed, I said, wait, they're all going someplace.
Well, yeah.
So then I just followed them, and there's this racetrack. I even forget where it was, but just paid the $10 to go watch races.
What a happy accident.
Yeah, it was awesome. But
$10 to go watch races? That's a good deal.
It was one step above what we used to do in St. George.
Perfect.
Racing.
Yeah.
But it was just cool to talk to the locals there about the car scene and what they do, and kind of southeast Georgia, somewhere out there on Country Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in the middle of nowhere just by myself going to check out Savannah, and it was just so much fun just seeing car stuff all over.
Yeah.
But that's a perfect start to what we're going to talk about, because the first one on my list when I Googled different types of car races, drag racing's the first one.
Classic. That is, I mean, drag racing is kind of the first one anyone gets into anyways. Just because, like, your tracks are easier to access, be more accessible for drag racing, because essentially all you need is, like, an airport and you're good. And so most people, you can just, like, rent out those.
Well,
I'm saying, like it's a cheap thing to do. It's not. But because it's easier to do that and you don't need, like, turns and stuff like that, you just need a long straightaway. Doing drags is pretty easy.
Think about it. When do boys start racing each other? Whether it's a foot race, a bike race, skateboard race.
Everything. It's not just boys. Katana was keeping up with us.
That's true.
At least you
boys
tried.
and girls, sorry. Boys and girls.
Come on.
But I would just picture my neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, because they're like 10 kids all about the same
He
age.
also had like 40 siblings, and like only one of those was a girl. So
Yeah. So no matter where we went, we were racing.
yeah,
Walking, running,
yeah,
you know. So it only makes sense that you just want to continue
yeah.
proving your
Kind of a natural like lead in from that.
your things faster.
Yeah.
So
The cool thing about drag, I actually had a conversation with somebody. We talked about this recently, just kind of talking about like the differences in racing. And this Tesla just set a 9-second. I can't remember if it was I believe it was a quarter mile, which that is fast.
yeah, 9 seconds. You have to start having some heavy safety gear.
Yeah,
at that
9
point.
seconds is really, really quick. But then I got thinking about it. I was like, how? It's cool, but why is it cool? Is it just because it's going fast, as quick as possible? And so I'm like, I feel like that's a really good like base level to start on learning how to control a car is with drag racing, because speed does weird things. And
Yeah,
so
for
you kind of
sure.
like, it's not just going straight, like you're doing this, keeping it in line. And so I think that's a good way for someone to understand like just steering control. Because
Yeah,
for me,
'cause-
there's definitely more types of racing that's way more intense than drag racing.
Yeah, no doubt. Which will be the next one. we
Yeah,
talk
so
about. But because when you hit it and you just pop that clutch or hit the torque converter, the stall converter,
whatever thing makes you launch.
it's just hold on, because that car could go right, depending on if your tires are hooking up and grabbing traction. You could be going sideways doing.
I mean, if
donuts.
the PSI is even off on one tire, you're gonna end up hooking one way or the other. So.
Yeah, and I just had a thought. Another thing, it's like, why do we like hockey and why do we like racing? And you don't want to see anybody get hurt, but there's
I'll tell
definitely
you what, though.
that thrill. You don't go to a hockey game to watch hockey. You go to a hockey game to watch fights.
Yep,
Because
yep.
they're going to break out.
Yeah.
It's the same with racing. Are we going to see somebody crash today?
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of a weird. You don't want it to
You
happen.
don't want it to happen,
you-
but if it does, you know it's going to be insane. And the weirdest part is, like, most people, like, actually live through them now because of all the safety regulations. I mean, the roll cages alone you have to have just to even make it into racing is
Yeah,
insane.
I saw, I think it was a show about a guy that crashed and he was burning and the car was burning for a while
Oh, yeah.
before they could get him out.
There was an
He made
F1 driver that went into a wall last year, like under the metal wall, and just crawls right out. That would not have happened back in when you were drag racing. That person would have just been toast.
No, on our level, we didn't have roll cages or anything because it was just basically street
Yeah.
cars. So the next subject is rally racing.
We have a love for rally racing, hence Subarus. Rally racing, we are talking about the opposite spectrum, because for me, rally racing is the pinnacle of like racing and on a non-tarmac surface. Mainly just because you're taking that same speed from drag, you're taking the same acceleration, everything, that just the idea of drag racing. Now you're putting it on the dirt, and you're also drifting your car through corners. You're
Jumping and flying.
yeah,
and
like you're adding in so much more, like, one, hazards, but two, just like precision and Like there's drag racing. Everyone's like, oh yeah, you can't think of drag racing. You kind of can. Like you're like you can kind of check your mirrors and be like, oh, where is this guy? Like, are they here? You do that in rally racing, you're dead. Like there is no mirror checking.
No, and if you've ever watched rally racers and the navigator, I would get so sick because he's just staring at his paper,
Yeah.
reading off the next corner and the degree of that corner, if it's left or right, and if it's just a slight slope or a radical turn.
Well, and like if you think about it, they're doing this the entire time. They don't even know what they're looking at.
They
Like,
don't
this
even
is
know
it.
where they're going.
All they know is by the motion of the car, they're like, okay, now we're in turn. They're counting like the steps.
I can't imagine the G forces and the motion. I would,
Oh, your vertigo you'd be
no.
knocked out.
I'd puke.
I have no co-pilot. Dang it.
There's no way.
Carson.
I respect.
Do you want to go to rally car?
I respect the navigator almost as much as the driver.
For sure, because there's some navigators that are the drivers as well. But there's also drivers that are navigators. So
I just can't imagine flying down these dirt roads in between trees and people and animals.
Well, one of the crazier parts is most like track-based motorsports have the team. It's only the driver in the car, but they have headsets and they can communicate. You can't really do that in rally because the team doesn't know where you're at. You can tell them where you're at and stuff like that, but they don't see you, so they can't give you a readout. Oh, this person's coming up behind you. Make sure you do this, or you're gonna come up on this person. Make sure you go around them this way. Like there's no direction. It's just pure instinct.
Yeah, and it's similar to. We're gonna have to cut this out. My mind just went blank.
You're good.
Dang it! Okay, there was another kind of racing. Anyway.
So those are the two spectrums. We're going to talk about more. So the most common ones we run into is Formula, which is Formula One. Pretty sure everyone knows F1. F2 is basically how people get into F1. And then there's F3. Their cars are built differently, obviously, for different levels and whatnot. And so Formula is most easily accessible. Then NASCAR is kind of second. NASCAR is just... Okay, mad respect for NASCAR. One, Daytona, the stadium is huge. Like, there is not a camera in the world that can just get the picture of how big Daytona racetrack is. I drove across it, and it was 5 lights in length and, like, another 6 wide.
No, that's huge.
That's bigger than, like, most parks.
Yeah, similar as Indianapolis when I went there.
Absolutely massive.
The thing I didn't know was there's some... Formula, there's like levels of Formula One, obviously the highest.
Same with NASCAR's,
but
NASCAR is below that. I think it's Pro Stock or something like that.
Yeah, but NASCAR, you also that type of racing, you get the sprint cars and the midgets. I love the midgets. They're like this big with a big V8 in it, a massive wing. Those things just fly. They're crazy.
That's a terrifying vehicle.
But in Formula, there's the V, which is actually. I almost like the look of the V cars more than the more expensive cars because it'd be cool to drive that on the street.
Yeah, and it's basically a cockpit motor and 4 wheels. That's it. No fenders, no nothing. You see all the suspension, and you're just like this far from the ground.
Yeah, and all of these are single seaters.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, so that's kind of the more open wheel style. Then you have the closed wheel style that is like the supercar racing stuff with like what Lambos do in that GT type circuit, which is GT is kind of more like German, really popular in Germany. But I mean, if you look at the cars that are like racing in GT, it is only German cars. So
I'm sure there's an English or a U.S. one.
Yeah, I mean Aston Martin and stuff, but it's just that like the RS7 that we just talked about, that's a GT car, but like a Viper for sure is not a GT car.
Yeah, so also there's Formula Brath and Formula RUS. I'm not sure what that is.
Me neither. There's Formula E is pretty interesting. That's the electric car version. And what's interesting about it is it has 2 rules. So they get like boosts of energy, like more power, and they can use that once per the race. But then there is like a fan side of it. I don't know if they still do this, but the fans can vote on like their favorite car or favorite driver. That driver will have an extra boost that the other drivers won't. So it's like a tactical advantage. And they have to time where to use that and whatnot. So it's kind of interesting because that's really similar on how like the Nitro RX or like the GRC that's changed so many times, but just kind of the toned down version of Rallycross is just the RX series. And in the RX series, they have that same kind of formula. So it's interesting to see a Formula E working more like an RX series, rather because Formula's always been there's the path and there you go.
Yeah, I wonder if that car. My nephew helped build electric race cars when he was studying engineering at BYU, and one day I got to go drive the Formula One looking.
The Indy, the electric Indy car that they built. Yeah, that thing was beautiful.
It was such a riot.
Yeah, what does that feel like? Because I mean, the only thing I can think of that would feel like, other than a Tesla, would be like a roller coaster.
Yeah, very similar to the roller coaster when you launch. But the thing that's so cool about it, I could only drive it on campus.
Oh, just driving a race car around BYU.
But as you coming out of a corner and you just give it a little bit of throttle, there's no sound whatsoever. It's just this push back in the seat.
Oh, that's weird. It's only the G's?
Yeah, you just feel the juice. There's no noise other than you hear the tires.
That's like a peanut butter jelly without the jelly.
But you're so low, felt like a little go-kart, but obviously bigger and way faster. But
yeah.
Just
Speaking of go-karting, if you do want to get into this open wheel style racing, go-karting is actually the cheapest and easiest way to physically do it. Then there's also simulation racing has become huge because of COVID. That's a huge thing. And actual drivers for like F1 will use simulation racing to learn tracks.
Yeah. Oh, it makes sense.
Yeah, I was like, that is so weird.
Yeah. So what else is there?
Kind of the reason we want to explain the different levels of racing is we're going to do it. We're not going to be F1 drivers. But we have recently picked up a 04 Mini Cooper S that's already got some fun parts on it. It's got roll cage and all that jazz. And we are turning it into a race car and potentially some other versions of race cars. So, yes, we wanted to introduce the Mini as a side thing that we'll be doing along the podcast. And we'll be recording this and whatnot. But we're going to, first, since we've already got it, I'm going to tell you how to find a project car for pretty cheap. And second, how to build it reliably. And if you want to turn it into a daily, how to do that. Or if you want to do what we're doing, make it a daily and a race car, we can teach you how to do that. But we're also going to record us out at the track racing and like what we're doing while we're like there physically, and like go over all the costs of it, how long it takes, what we're worried about, why we're worried about it. I mean, right now I can tell you these tires are going to go on it. They are not going to be on there next year. We're going to be blowing through these tires pretty easily, and that's a normal thing for racing. And so, yeah, tire hookup's definitely going to be needed at some point.
Well, the thing I like about this so much is it's obviously we're not sponsored big time racing.
No, absolutely not.
Just how many cars throughout America are sitting in somebody's garage that they just hope someday to finish and get to the track?
Yes.
And this is the same thing. It's such a budget build project.
Yeah. I mean, there's parts up here. We've been picking up those just along the way. There's just from people parting out cars. I mean, both those overflow canisters are right around $250 to $300 each. And just because we were just hunting for parts and we just part of a mini group, the super cool guys sold them $50 each. I was like, there you go. Like, building race cars isn't hard, and you don't have to buy everything brand new. Like, it's an aluminum can. The only thing that's different is just dirty. Like, clean it up.
Saved what, $400?
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. Did that on the intercooler as well. It's a $700 intercooler. Picked it up for $400, but I technically only paid about $250 for it because I sold one that was already on my card, so that money just basically paid for itself.
Yeah. So,
but yes,
one of the things that we look for on these builds and finding the parts is we may not, as as you search through the classifieds and car groups, specific car groups, like you mentioned the mini group, well, there are 3 or 4 mini groups in Utah.
Oh yeah, there's
if not more.
yeah, there's a surprising amount actually.
You just look for parts, and if the part is 50% or less, then
Just buy it. If
buy
you
a
can,
new
just
one.
do it.
If it's something you need down the road,
Like this intercooler right there. This thing's freaking huge, and that's not going to go on a car for probably like a year or two. But that's
it was such a good deal. These
$100.
these tires we found online, and it was right like a day after you got the mini.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, hey, what size tires are those? This guy has these for sale for $100 a piece. So $400 for brand new tires with the sticker still on them.
Yep.
And you always want to check the manufacturer date. Make sure you're not buying a 10-year-old tire.
Yep.
It's going to be all dried out and cracked. But you know,
Yes.
it's just looking and talking to other people that have the same kind of cars. You know, if you talk to somebody and they say, no, I don't have it, they're not going to be offended if you say, well, do you know anybody else that may be into minis or into whatever? And, you know, one thing leads to the other, and you find these smoking deals.
Oh yeah, and the coolest part is a lot of the parts I'm getting from people just here in Utah. All of us have minis that we were like kind of building and whatnot, and so now there's just gonna be this like little built mini community now. And one of my a friend was asking me like, why did we get another Mini Cooper? And I was like, if you look at the cars that people are racing in like not autocross, but the level right above that, those are the cars you want to pick up. They're racing those cars for a specific reason, whether it be parts are really available or it could just be they're super reliable, even built. The Mini just happens to cover both of those. Parts are honestly super cheap. Even the new parts, like we're talking about the steels, all the new parts I've got are still super cheap as well. So it's more of getting over the fact that for the Mini, the biggest hurdle is everyone sees the Mini Cooper as a girl's car. And I'm like, until you stick a demon inside of it. Like, so it's kind of more of you got to bring your pride down on what people think about your car and just go for it. Because, I mean, another great example a lot of people would avoid would be a Miata. The Miata platform is incredible, but again, every single time we talk about it, one of us says it's a secretary car. It's a joke, but it's kind of how it's seen, as it's just not at the same level as like an STI and stuff, but you put $5,000 into it and it can eat an STI. So you just got to get over the fact that people are going to make fun of you for driving it.
Well, and that thought goes way back in the movie Ford versus Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when the Mustang came out, that is kind of what it was looked at.
Oh yeah,
And
for
then-
sure. It was a 4-cylinder. It didn't even come with a V8. The original pony car did not come even close to what it is.
Yeah, so I mean, it took them a few years to start coming out with some pretty killer Mustangs.
Thank you, Shelby.
But you know, there's so many cars throughout history that have just not hit that mark of, oh, this is a performance car, or we can make this into a performance car. It's like our FRS.
Oh, that's totally not a performance car by any means.
No, it's basically an economy car with a cool body on it.
Yeah, that's all it is.
But what they did was they gave you a car that you can easily build from to make it a fun track day daily driver.
Yeah, the platform is more important than the actual vehicle itself. It's more of how well can I build this for how cheap is the ultimate car guy goal. Because, I mean, the biggest comparison I can think of is building an STI versus building an Evo. That has been an argument and will forever be an argument of you're going to put more money into the less money into the STI to get the same power as an Evo, but the Evo costs more to build, but the moment you do, it's way better than an STI. So it's more of like, you can get this one here and you can get this one here. This one here will just be more reliable and cheaper, or more expensive. It's just what you're willing to go through to get there.
Well, that's been the case from the beginning. The reason I built Chevys as a kid was because
They're
they were
cheap.
so cheap. And you could take heads off of this one and put on that one and get more performance just by switching some parts around.
Same with Subarus.
You know, and Ford was kind of in between. But if you saw a built Chrysler, it just automatically had respect.
If you had a
because,
built Challenger, you now own wherever you're at.
You know, it was 2 to 3 times more expensive to build that car, and those big Dodge motors lasted so much longer.
Yeah.
So it's that side of it's been going on forever.
Yeah, and it'll keep going on like that forever. I mean, you can look at BMW and Audi. Same thing. There's competitors for a reason, and it's going to be the same argument every single time.
Who's is faster?
Yep. And how much money did you do to get it? Like,
Exactly. Yeah, so you just need to look around and be patient. You know, obviously, if you had a blank checkbook and you could go order, 10 grand worth of parts, no
absolutely.
problem.
But if you can, it's also not impossible to do it on a budget. You just have to be patient and tactical about it.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a few years.
I have a question for you.
What's that?
Is there milk in that cup too?
Chocolate milk.
Oh, attaboy, consistency is king. Did you just cheers the camera? Right on.
Yep.
Cool. So I think, we're excited just to get going. A lot of the people that are going to be helping on this are people that we've known for 6+ years that are in the car scene, and we've all wanted to just build a race car. So we're just doing it at this point. Now we have adult money. We can do a little bit more adult things. That's all it is.
I wouldn't say adult money. I mean, we're adults, but
Hey, it's better than $10 at McDonald's.
That's
tell you what.
true.
But yeah, we're excited to see where it grows, how it grows. Like, there's not much. We have like an idea of like the growth pattern. I mean, we've talked about turning it into an autocross car and also turning it into a off-road overlander we can go camping in a mini. So this thing's kind of a sandbox of a car for us to just try anything out on, and it's gonna get weird, but it's gonna be really cool.
yeah, and the platform, the mini platform, as Matt was explaining,
Oh, perfect.
now parts for the minis are so much cheaper.
Oh, I tried building one like 7 years ago. That was a real bad idea. Every part was like $400, and then I look at the same part now. I'm like, well, I should have waited.
Yeah, so and it's a perfect car, and that's something that's really important when you're looking for a project car, is accessibility of parts as well as the cost of the parts. You can build a killer Volkswagen for almost nothing
Yeah.
compared to, some of these other cars are out there. So, just look around, see how available parts are. If you're interested in a certain car, find their chat groups and social media and ask
Don't
questions.
look at the cool ones, because the cool ones will always be cool. Look at the ones where the guys are like, I want to make this a cool one. Because the guys that are already done aren't going to tell you how much money are in it. The guys that are in the middle of a project will totally tell you how much they put into it, so you can kind of gauge how much you're going to be putting into it based off of that.
Yeah, so we're just talking low budget ideas and what Mattson's been able to do. I'm sure
If I can do it, most anyone can. It's not too difficult, honestly. It's just, again, just patience.
this came about. I think you probably already heard. He had a motorcycle that he paid about $2,000 for.
Yep.
Traded that for a different motorcycle. Traded that for the
89 Dodge Ram Charger.
the Ram Charger.
Rest in peace, Clyde.
And he kept saying, "Man, I want to get another Mini. I want to get another Mini." And one day he said, "Hey, I found a Mini, and it's just in our same town."
Yep.
And so, he at a chance, he just messaged.
There
the
is
guy,
zero.
"Hey."
One, if you're watching this, thank you for doing the trade. Second, this shouldn't have happened. Just because, so it's got a blown head gasket. The Ram Charger was running, but it's a Ram Charger from the 80s, so it's going to have its issues. And so I was like, well, it's pretty much all I got right now, so let's just see if he'll go for it. And Jesus made it happen. So
He was thrilled. He was thrilled to get another big Dodge truck.
Oh yeah, I think
vehicle. So those are out there. They're few and far between. But if you don't ask, and I just amazes me how many times you'll see something and say, "Hey, you want to trade?" And people are like, "What do you got?"
Shoot, you're doing that. Carson, I've deemed your position as marketing director. Our marketing director we're trying to do the same thing with a Camry and a van. So if you want a Camry and you have a van, let us know, because we can get a little swappage.
Yep. Anyway,
But yeah. So just the normal. If you can follow us on Instagram, Obviously, YouTube, Facebook. That would all be fantastic. And we're gonna have more merch coming out pretty soon.
Anything coming up locally?
The big one for us is July 23rd. Fuel Fest is going to come, that's put on by Cody Walker, which is Paul Walker's little brother. It's a fantastic meet. It's actually like the first thing we did as Coop and Hatch was go to the LA Fuel Fest, which was the first one, and holy crap, was that the craziest thing I've ever been to.
That was a great day. The other
That was
thing,
insane.
this next weekend I'll be out of town for work, but the UVU.
Yes, the
car
UVU
show.
car show is going. That is a absolute classic in Utah to go to. There's a swap meet too. We almost bought a rat bug from this swap meet for like $4,000. So you run into some really weird projects there.
Yeah, so if you're looking for weird, unusual car parts, that's a great place to go. I wish we had more car swap meet stuff going on, but it's awesome. It's like the 30th year or something like
something
that.
like
So
that. It's huge.
this is a well-established car show in
And it's
Utah.
at UVU, which is pretty cool. So it's a pretty controlled situation as well. And there's anything from classic cars, and I know they're focusing a lot on getting our generation to come in. So there might be some supercars parked. There's a high chance we're going to see a Lamborghini parked next to an El Camino, and that should never happen. But I'm really glad it's most likely going to happen.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, thanks for just joining us, talking about different types of racing, and we're excited to show you how to do the build. We already have the team name too. It's Clutch Dump. So yeah, it just kind of fits the rowdiness of it. So yeah, we'll be putting up our Coop and Hatch podcast videos as well as the Team Clutch Dump. And those will be a completely different format, just a little bit more wild. So yeah, if you could follow us on that journey as well, that would be really cool. We love you guys.
Thank you for watching.